everyone. I am Kimberlyn Wayland, and I am the design coordinator for Premier Yarns. And today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make this water bottle holder with our Premier Yarns home cotton. And this is a great project for learning to work in the round, as well as just some basic crochet techniques. But it's a great project for if you're going hiking or if you're going to the pool, just a great little carrying bag that's practical and functional, as well as looks really nice. And the pattern we're working with today actually includes for both a water bottle bag as well as the yoga mat bag. But in today's class, I'm just going to show you how to do the smaller bag, because once you know the techniques in that bag, you'll also know how to make the larger bag, because it's the exact same techniques in both. It's just you're using more stitches in the larger. So we're going to walk through the smaller bag first today. And we can go ahead and switch to my hands, and I'll show you what you need today. I'll actually show you what you need to complete the whole project. So if you wanted to make both bags, you'll just need 4 balls of our home cotton splash print, or you could certainly use whichever color you choose, but the color in the pattern is our Ocean Splash, and it's this beautiful turquoise splash print. And then you'll also need 2 balls of a solid color, and we're using turquoise. And if you want to make both bags, you'll need 1 ball of the multi for the small bag and 1 ball of the solid. And for the big bag, you'll need 3 balls of the multi and 1 ball of the solid. But for today, if you don't have all of that, that's perfectly fine. We're just going to be really trying to master the techniques in the stitch patterns in the bag. So if you just have 1 ball or whatever you have on hand, that's perfectly fine. But today I'm going to be working with the colors in the pattern, which are Ocean Splash and Turquoise. To complete both bags, you'll also need a Tassel Maker, a small one to make 2-inch tassels with instructions. But we're not going to really be working with that in today's class, but that's just what you would need to complete both projects. You could also certainly use, there's many techniques to make tassels. You can certainly find lots of tutorials on YouTube as well, but you can use cardboard or even something this size, like a deck of cards. You don't have to have this tassel maker, but that's what you want to have, something to make tassels with on hand if you want to add the tassels to your project at the end. But for today's class, you'll also need a crochet hook, a size I9. Let me see if I can get that on camera. I9 5.5 millimeter. That's what the pattern calls for, but if your personal gauge or tension is a little looser or tighter, your hook size may be different, but you can play around and practice with these stitches we learned today and kind of see which size works best for you. But the average size that's best for this worsted weight yarn is a I9 5.5. But I will say that we also are going to work double stranded, meaning we're going to double the strands and double the thickness to make the drawstring portion. So you may want to go up or have a larger hook size on hand as well for that part, just to make it a little easier. So I also have a 6 millimeter J10 hook as well. But you could also use a K or whatever you have on hand for a larger hook. And I'm working with wooden hooks today, but if you have a metal hook or plastic hook, whatever your preference is, that works perfectly fine too. Just make sure it's somewhere around a 5.5 millimeter. And for today, you'll also want to have a pair of scissors, sharp scissors. And this is more so for when you are making your tassels at the end. So you may not necessarily need that for what you're practicing in today's class, but to complete the project overall, you will want to have scissors on hand, as well as a tapestry or yarn needle, looks like this, and that's to weave in your ends at the end of the project. And the last thing you'll also want to have is a removable stitch marker. Since we are working in the round in a spiral in this particular pattern, which I'll explain more of what I mean by that in a little bit, You'll want to have a removable stitch marker. If you don't have this exact type of stitch marker, you can certainly use something like a safety pin or even a scrap piece of yarn in a contrasting color to tie. This is just going to mark our spot so we can know where we were and how long to make the water bottle holder. So you'll want to have something to mark your place with, and I highly recommend the removable stitch markers like this. And you can find these at Michael's as well in the crochet section or in the yarn section. And you'll just need one for this project, but you're going to want to make sure that it's in a color that is contrasting and you can see really well against whatever color yarn you're using. So I'm going to use either a pink or orange today so I can see it. And then you'll also, this isn't mandatory, but you'll want to have a measuring tape on hand. Gauge is somewhat important in this pattern, but not crucial. Since this stitch pattern is fairly open with lace and these eyelets, it stretches. So you don't have to make sure that your gauge is exactly accurate, but you want to make sure when we get past this first bottom part that it at least fits on the bottom of the water bottle you're wanting to cover with. So having a measuring tape on hand to measure your stitches and your gauge, which I'll explain in a little bit, is going to be handy to have. So that's all you'll need along with your written pattern to get started on this project today. So I'll go ahead and go over the pattern and kind of show you how our pattern is broken up in our Premier pattern template. So this is the pattern. You'll find the PDF download in the class description as well as the chat. But we have your finished measurements for both here, the materials we just went over here, and then the gauge, which I just mentioned with the measuring tape. So what you'll want to do as you're going is measure rounds 1 through 3 and make sure that they measure just about 3 3/4 inches across, and that'll ensure that your bag will be the right size. However, if your water bottle is a little smaller or bigger, kind of just eyeball, I would say, rather than measure gauge, that the bottom portion as you go fits over the bottom of your water bottle. That'll be more helpful than measuring your gauge in this instance, I would say. So after that, we have pattern notes, and that just tells you how the bags are constructed. So like I said, these are constructed from the bottom up in a spiral. So that means we're going to start at this bottom portion and work in the round in a spiral up to the top. And then the other pieces of this pattern are the strap and this drawstring, and these are both worked flat instead of in the round and then just attached at the end. So then we have our stitch guide, and this just has the special technique we're going to use explained here. And this is called magic ring. This is how we're going to begin our spiral, and I'll show you that in just a second, but that's just the written instructions for that technique I'm going to show you. And as you can see, this is actually written technically for right-handed crocheters, but we are working left-handed today. So if you're right-handed, this is the correct written instructions, but I'll show you how to do it left-handed. And the only thing that is different is instead of wrap yarn around your left middle finger, we'll be wrapping it around our right because we're left-handed. So we're working opposite mirrored right-handed crocheters. So we'll go ahead and begin, and I'll show you the first step. Like I said, we're just going to go through the techniques in the smaller bag today, but once you learn those, you'll be able to also make the larger bag because it's the same technique, just different numbers. So to start the water bottle bag, we're going to skip to the second page of your pattern, and we begin where it says water bottle holder. All right, so I also forgot to mention that on the last page of your pattern, you'll find all the abbreviations mentioned in the written pattern. So anytime you see an abbreviation like MC, you'll know that on the last page, that means main color, DC, double crochet, and all the other abbreviations mentioned in the pattern are here. So we'll go ahead and get started. And you'll want to start with your 5.5 millimeter hook, or whichever hook you're choosing to use today, and your main color. So with MC, main color, we're going to make a magic ring. So I'll show you how to do that. So whichever color you're using today for the main part of the water bottle bag, so whatever you want to use for this main part, you're going to begin with now. So I'm using this same color, Ocean Splash. And you're going to start by either pulling the yarn from the center, which let me grab, well, it's easier to show you. You can pull from the center, or if, say, you get a big bit of what's called yarn barf, you can also pull the label off, slide it off, and there's another end on the outside, and you can work from the outside too. So it's really up to your preference, whatever works better for your particular skein you're working with. Some are easier to pull from the center than others. It just depends. But I'm going to start from the center today. And we're going to make a magic ring. So if you want to read along with the written instructions, you can. It's on the first page, but I'll show you visually how to do it as well, especially since we're working left-handed. So you're going to wrap your yarn around your right middle finger. So I actually like to wrap it around my two fingers, my pointer and middle finger. You're going to lay it over like this with the bottom of the yarn hanging over, and wrap it around until it intersects at the top like this. And then you're going to just pinch it with your thumb to hold it in place. And this is the only kind of tricky part, I will say, of this step. So you're going to want to grab your hook with your left hand and insert it here into like this part right here, and grab the yarn, the long end of the yarn that's connected to the ball. And now that you've done that, you're going to want to carefully pinch that same spot you're pinching with your thumb to slide the ring off your finger. All right, and kind of hold that in place, and you're going to wrap your yarn like you're about to crochet. So you're holding this in place just like you were when it was over your fingers, but you just slid it off. So we're going to chain one to hold this in place, because right now it's kind of loose and not secure. So chain one. And now, as you can see, we have this circle to work into, and it looks pretty big right now. But what's going to happen is we're going to work this first round and then pull this closed. And the reason we do it this way is that makes the bottom of the bag able to close completely. There's no little hole. So this method ensures that the bottom of the bag will have no hole and will close completely. Sometimes when you're working in the round, you will have instructions where it's like chain 4 and then join to form a ring. And that's great too, but that'll always have a small little hole in the center. The magic ring method just makes sure that that hole is able to be closed all the way. So that's the magic ring. And I'll show you that one more time, because I know it is a little bit tricky just to get the hang of it first. But the more you practice it, just like with every crochet technique, the more you practice, the more it will become like muscle memory. So we're going to lay it over our middle and pointer finger and wrap it. And when it intersects at the top, we just pinch it with our thumb and kind of throw the yarn back to set up for grabbing it with our hook. So from front to back, insert your hook and grab the yarn. And then you're going to want to just grab the whole circle and make sure you have it held just like how it was on your hand, and kind of shift to this hand so that you can chain one and make your magic circle. All right. So that's the magic ring. Sometimes it's called magic circle, magic ring. In this pattern, we refer to it as magic ring. So round one is what we're going to be working into before we close that ring up. So it says to work a single crochet first. What we're going to do, if you haven't crocheted before, a single crochet is just yarning over once. So instead of working into a stitch, we're going to work into this ring like it says, all stitches in round one. So you're just going to put your hook into the ring, pull the yarn up and single crochet. So there's 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both. And that's your first single crochet. And then it says to half double crochet. So that's 1 step over. So you're going to yarn over first, insert your hook, pull that yarn just like we did with a single crochet. And now you have 3 loops on your hook for a half double crochet. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So now we have that single crochet and that half double crochet. And that's the first 2. And then it says to do 7 DC, 7 double crochet stitches. And that's the last we'll do before we pull the ring closed. So I'll show you how to do the double crochet. It's just like half double, except for there's 1 additional step. So you're going to pull your yarn over, insert your hook, grab it to where there's 3, like we just did with half double crochet, except for this part's a little tricky if you haven't done a double crochet before, but you're going to yarn over and pull through just these first 2 loops. So yarn over and pull through 2. And now there's 2 on our hook again. And you're going to yarn over and pull through those last 2. And that's a double crochet. And as you can see now, they're kind of like a staircase. So the single crochet is the shortest stitch. And because of the additional yarn overs we did, it makes the stitches taller and taller. So we have a single, half, and double. And as you can see, it's like a little staircase. And we're going to do 6 more double crochets into this ring, just like what we just did. And if at any time, I do want to remind you guys, if I'm going too fast or if there's something you're missing, this is being recorded and you'll be able to watch the playback on Michael's YouTube channel, as well as their website. So if there's anything that's going too quickly, don't worry, you can rewatch once it's posted on their YouTube channel and look back as many times as you want. So we're going to do 6 more double crochets and that'll be the last part of this round 1. So I'm just going to quickly do that and then I'll show you on the last stitch how to work it again, just as a refresh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or wait, let's see, there's single, half, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 1 more. So double crochet again, I'll show you once more. Let me move this out of the way. Yarn over, insert your hook into this ring, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So it looks pretty funky right now. And that's because the ring's really large. But if you pull this small tail that you have from the beginning and just hold on to the stitches here and gently pull, you'll notice, excuse me, you'll notice that it is tightening up. And then you just pull it until it closes all the way. And that's our first round. And the reason that we did it single, half, double crochet as like a staircase is because we want to set up to work in a spiral. So instead of having just a typical flat circle, we're working in a spiral. So we're building that staircase to make it continue to spiral. So as you can see in both, and especially in the yoga bag, because of working in the spiral in that way, there's these nice eyelets that are diagonally around the bag. So that's why we're starting that way. So that's the end of round 1. And this is where you're going to need that stitch marker. So as you can see in round 1, it says after you've done that 7th double crochet, you're going to place your removable marker in the last double crochet to mark the end of the round. So I'm going to use this pink one. And this is the last stitch we did. You can see it looks like a V on the top. To mark it, you're just gonna, like as if you were putting your hook in it to work a stitch, you're gonna just slip your removable stitch marker or safety pin or whatever you have on hand into that stitch and mark it. And that's the first round. And this is how you'll begin both bags. It'll just be, instead of on the small bag, you'll work 7 double crochets, for example. And then on the large bag, you'll work more because you're making a bigger bag. But it's the same technique and the same method of working in the round and spiral, just like this. So we're going to start building the bottom and making it bigger to build that base of the water bottle holder. So we're doing this part right here. So we just did this round and we're going to build it so it's bigger and bigger to fit the bottom and the base of the water bottle bag. So to do that, on round 2, we're going to work 2 double crochet in each stitch around. And what's different and what I mean by working in a spiral instead of just in the round is we're not joining it at the end of each round. So if you've worked in the round before, sometimes you'll join with a slip stitch at the end, and then chain 1 and work each round individually. And as you can see, we do have individual rounds technically in the instructions, but we're not joining each one. And that's why we're using this stitch marker so that we can remember where the beginning of each round technically is. But this eliminates a seam, and it also makes it to where we can work in that pretty spiral that is in the stitch pattern. So 2 in each stitch. So it's double crochet just like we were doing. And we should have 9 stitches total right now. And by working 2 in each, we'll have 18. So we're increasing, we're doubling the stitches. So increasing by 9 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 in each stitch. So this first V right here, we're going to insert a hook and do 2 double crochets. And that was just like before, when you yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then you're going to do a second one in that same stitch. And that's what you're going to do in each stitch all the way around until we get back to this marker. So 2 in each stitch. And I'm just doing that same double crochet stitch. It's all you do for this round is 2 in each. Two, yarn over, 3 loops on your hook, pull through 2, pull through 2. And that's all you've got to do, 2 in each. And we're almost at that marker, and we'll see that we have 18 stitches. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. We're at the last stitch where we'll do 2 double crochets. And now we have, or we should have 18 if I counted my stitches correctly. Oh, and I forgot to mention, if your hole in the center comes a little loose, just give that little tail, that's shorter tail, a tug, and it will close right back up. And that should stop happening after you work a few rounds, but the first few, it can come a little loose. So just give it a little tug and it'll close right back up. So we now have 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then we're going to want to continue increasing, but in a flat circle. So instead of doing 2 in each, the way you increase is you're going to do 2 double crochets in the next stitch, and then just 1 in the next, and repeat that pattern all the way around. So 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. But you also want to make sure that you're moving this stitch marker to the last stitch of your round as you complete each round for the setup. So just like I said before, the last stitch of the round you work, you just slide your stitch marker right in there. And now we're ready for round 3. And this is the last part of the setup. And this is the part where after we work this round, you're going to want to make sure that the piece that you have fits the bottom of your water bottle that you're wanting to use for the water bottle bag. So it's 2 in the first stitch, 2 double crochet, and it's just the same double crochet stitch in this round as well. But instead of 2 in each, it's 2 in the next, 1 in the next, 2 in the next, 1 in the next. So 2 in this first one, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, and then all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and just work to the end there, and I'll slow down right at the end just to show you a little clearer the double crochet stitch again, just to make sure we're really getting the hang of it. 2, 1, 1, 2, and in that last stitch you'll only do 1. So we're at the last repeat, 2 in this second to last stitch, and then 1 double crochet in this last one, and then we're back at this stitch marker. So at this point, this piece should be close to, it doesn't have to cover the water bottle exactly because it will stretch with the nature of the lacy pattern, but you want to make sure it at least is able to stretch over the bottom of your water bottle, just to make sure you're on track before you get too far along with the pattern. So this is the bottom setup. And what we're going to continue to do from here is work in a spiral, and we really won't have a beginning and end to a round in this part. You're going to just work in a spiral until your piece measures 6.5 inches from this stitch marker. So I'll show you what I mean by that with this setup round for the side. So this is where it gets a little different from what we've been doing. We're no longer growing it wider. We're building the sides up. So there's no more increasing. It's just building this spiral pattern. So for the setup round, you're going to chain 2. So yarn over and chain 1, yarn over and chain 2. And then you're going to skip 2 double crochets. So skip those first 2. And then you're going to double crochet into each of the next 4. So we're not going to work into this one that's marked or the next one. We're going to double crochet into the 4 after that. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then in the next 3, we're going to do that same thing. All right. So we have 4 double crochets. So as you can see, we chain 2, and now we have that first eyelet space. And then we're going to repeat that same chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in 4 until we reach the last 3 double crochet in the round. So chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then repeat that same thing. So skip 2 and double crochet in 4. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in 4. And wait a minute, let's see. And the good thing about crochet is if you miscount, you can just rip back. So I'm going to show you that one more time because I think I was off with my counting, which can happen. So let's make sure we have 27. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So let me show you that one more time. You're going to chain 2, and then you're going to skip those 2. And this time it will work out. So double crochet in the next 4. And this is just the setup round for that spiral, like I said. So once you work the spiral, you'll just continue and continue and essentially making one long tube until you get to the end when we'll add the drawstring portion. So this is just that setup round to get you ready to work in the spiral. So we just chain 2 again. We're going to skip 2 and then double crochet in the next 4. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in 4. Oops. Until we get to 3 stitches before that stitch marker. So 3 stitches left now this time. And at that last part, instead of repeating what we just did, you're going to just chain 2, skip only 1 double crochet and then double crochet in the next 2. So chain 2, only skip 1 this time and double crochet in the next 2. And that's the end of that round. So we have what you're beginning to see as the first holes, the first eyelet stitches that make up the diagonal. So now we'll begin our spiral, but you're going to want to make sure to move this stitch marker and it's not going to move for a while. So we're going to move it to the last stitch we just worked of this round. And this marking this stitch here is what's going to be the beginning of the measurement for the spiral. So you're going to continue working this next round I'm going to show you for 6.5 inches from this. So as you continue working, you're going to measure and make sure when you're done that it's 6.5 inches from this little guy here. So to begin the spiral, we're going to just do 2 double crochets in this first chain 2 space here into this hole. So instead of working into a stitch, kind of like when we began with the magic ring, it's not a stitch, we're just working into this space here. So 2 double crochets in that space, and then chain 2, skip 2 double crochets, and then double crochet in the next 2. And you'll get really familiar with that part because that's the part you're repeating until it measures 6.5 inches from the top. So double crochet in the next 2, and then you begin that repeat again. So 2 double crochets in the next chain space. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in the next 2. And then you repeat that again. Double crochet, double crochet 2 in the chain 2 space. Chain 2, skip 2, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in the next 2. And you'll repeat, as it says, you'll repeat this step, just the 2 double crochet in chain 2 space, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in next 2. You'll repeat that bracket. Instead of moving this, don't move this at all anymore. You're going to just continue working and not worrying about where the beginning or end of your round is. So that may feel a little weird because it's not typical, but that's what we're doing because we're working this in a spiral and the rounds don't matter as much, the beginning and ends of them. So I'll show you that repeat a few more times, and then I'll show you what the piece looks like once it's at 6.5 inches. So 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, skip 2, so skip 1, 2, double crochet into the next 2. And then you'll just continue doing that. Same thing over and over until it's 6.5 inches long. That same double crochet 2 in the chain 2 space, then chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in the next 2. So this is what it looks like so far as we're starting. You can see there's a bottom and we're building up the sides now. But once we're done, I will say if your water bottle is really tall or longer than 6.5 inches, it's very easy to modify. You'll just measure from the stitch marker. So this stitch marker here is marked in the same spot as this. You'll want to measure from that stitch marker to the height of, just depending on your own water bottle, the height of the top of it before the lid. So for most it's 6.5 inches, and the nature of the stitch pattern, it stretches very well. So it should be able to fit most water bottles. So So we're right at about 6.5 inches. And as you can see, you don't have a beginning and end of a round. So you want to kind of just make sure it's somewhat even. It's not going to be perfectly flat and even because it is a spiral, but you're going to make sure you end that repeat right before a chain 2 space and at 6.5 inches long, not from the bottom, but from where you marked the beginning of the spiral with that stitch marker. So I'll show you at this point what you do to create the spaces that the drawstring will go through. So actually we'll make the drawstring first because that's what's next in the pattern. So the drawstring is this part that looks like a little braid almost. It's just a chain stitch, but it's with 2 strands held double to make it thicker. And it's just essentially making a chain, but with 2 strands of yarn. So, and it's the same for both bags, except for with this one, it's shorter. So you only chain 50 and the yoga mat bag, you chain more. So you're going to use your contrasting color. So CC means contrasting color. So whatever color you didn't use for the body of your bag, you're going to use for the drawstring. So I'm using turquoise, which is what's called for in the pattern, but you can certainly use whichever color you'd like. And I'll show you. It may be helpful to have 2 balls on hand to work double-stranded, but if you only have one, you can certainly pull from the center and the outside. I'll show you from the center and the strand on the outside at the same time, but just be careful that they don't get too twisted and tangled. But that's certainly doable if you only have 1 ball on hand. But if you have 2, it's helpful to just pull from 2 so they don't get as tangled. But I'm going to just use 1 today to show you. So I have the center strand from the center and the strand from the outside. And I'm going to go ahead, just so they don't get too tangled, I'm going to go ahead and unravel a good portion of both to get myself started. All right. And this is where you can certainly use a larger crochet hook because the yarn you're working with now is essentially twice as thick as just working with 1 strand. But if you only have the I-9 on hand, it's definitely doable to crochet a chain with. I did that with this one. So it's really up to you. But I'll show you what it's like with a J10 6mm. So you're going to take both strands of yarn and essentially make one. You're going to make a slip knot to set up for chaining. So I'll show you how to do that. You just, and there's many ways to do a slip knot. This is how I do it. You just make a loop. And make your slip knot. And then you're going to pull with the longer side so it fits to your hook. And leave a somewhat long tail for later for attaching the tassel. So I'm going to chain 50, and that's all you do for the drawstring is you chain with 2 strands of yarn like this held together, and you chain 50. Now, if you want a shorter drawstring or a longer drawstring, you can just simply subtract or add chains and just until it's the length of how long you want it. It's pretty simple to modify this as well. But what we call for in the pattern and with what this one has is 50. So show you a few more chains with it double stranded. And it's pretty simple, just like a foundation chain, but this is how we create the drawstring. So I'll show you, I actually have this one completed. So once it's done, this is what it looks like. And I left really long tails, but this is the drawstring. And at this point, if you wanted to add tassels, you could. You could also make little pom-poms or add beads, or just leave it as is, and just cut the tails. It's really up to you. It's pretty customizable. But for this pattern, we just made tassels with a typical tassel maker and followed the instructions provided with the tassel maker. But like I said, there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube for how to make tassels in tons of ways. But I think I'm going to show you the rest of how to set up the pieces that you're making really quick. So
we did have a question about the chain. So they said if the chain is 20 inches, about how many yards of yarn do you need for that?
20 inches, you wouldn't need much. I would say less than a ball. You only need one ball for the whole strap, the whole this part you work and this and the tassels. So it does not take much at all for that drawstring.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the last part is the strap. Or no, sorry. So we finished the spiral and we just have to make the top part. And that's really simple. It's just a couple rounds. So you're going to chain to CC. So change to the turquoise or whichever color you're using for the top and the contrasting color of the bag. So to begin, you can either move this marker up to the one once you're finished, like it says, or you can just, if you want to keep track of this still, you can add another and just put it in the last double crochet you worked. Once it got to the length you need, 6.5 inches for the pattern. But like I said, it's customizable. So you can, as long as you want to make it. The next part is we're going to change to this color. And to do that, we are simply going to join it in the next stitch. So you could tie this off and join it, but I'm just going to do it by working a single crochet. But what I'm going to show you is how to join it as if we were working this last stitch. So I'm going to undo this last double crochet and work it like it's the last one of the round. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2. But instead of pulling through with this color, I'm going to set up to join this one. So you grab your other color you're working with and instead pull through with it. And now you're set up to work those rounds with the contrasting color. So, and that's these rounds right here. You're going to single crochet in each stitch, working 2 in each chain 2 space. So we're beginning in a chain 2 space. So single crochet 2. Single crochet in every stitch around. So in every double crochet stitch from before, you're just going to work 1 single crochet, which is just insert your yarn or insert your hook, pull through 2 loops on your hook. And every time you come to a chain 2 hole space where there's a hole, you work 2 single crochets. So we'll do that until we get back to our marker at the beginning of the round. Switch back to my other hook. And this is just that first round. And on the next round, you make the chain 1 spaces. So working 2 into that chain 1 or chain 2 space. And then just continuing around with single crochet. 2 and then chain 2 space all the way to the beginning. 2 and then 2. So that's the first round. Second round, you're just gonna single crochet in that next stitch, chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet in the next one. And that's creating the spaces that you will feed the drawstring through. So when you're done with this round, you'll feed it through to pull it closed around your water bottle. So it's just chain 1, skip 1, single crochet for this one.
So Kitty wants to know, in the chain 2 space, is your hook going in the open part or through a loop?
It's going in the open part. So don't worry about trying to get your hook in the actual chain because that's a little tricky. You're just going to work it around the actual chain itself. So as you can see, I worked around the chain rather than into the actual chain 1, if that makes sense. So just around it rather than through it. It's much easier that way. And that's that way everything is lined up properly as well. So for this round, you just continue chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. And that's all there is to it for this top part. And the second round after this, you just single crochet again. So that's all there is to this last part. And I know we're getting a little short on time, so I'll show you the strap piece too really quickly, because it's very simple, but it's, instead of worked in the round, it's worked flat. So the strap, continuing with turquoise, you're gonna I'll grab another ball since I was working with that one. And to make the strap, it's essentially just a large strip of single crochet. And just like with the drawstring, you can make your strap as long or short as you want. But in this pattern, ours is 40 inches long. And that's about as long to be able to wear it. It comes to about hip height. So you can wear it across your chest if it's 40 inches long. But if you want it shorter, you would just make it shorter. And let's see, I think I have. So for the last part, the strap, you're just going to chain 6 and essentially just single crochet the whole way through. So I made that slip knot, and this is worked with 1 strand for this strap. The only part that's worked double stranded is the drawstring. So we're going to chain 6. And then we're going to double crochet. Oh. And then I was mistaken. Sorry about that. It's not single crochet, but it is constructed in the same way. It's double crochet the whole way through. So just like what we were doing in the base of the bag, double crocheting, the strap is double crochet as well. So you double crochet all the way across. And that's your first row. And then the next row, you chain 2 and double crochet all the way across. And this is just building that strap. And Once this is complete, you can either single crochet, attach it to the top, or you can sew it with your yarn needle. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter which method you choose because you're attaching it to the inside, so you won't see that seam anyway. So if you prefer to just attach it with crochet, single crochet, that's certainly a great method if you don't want to sew it. But you just repeat that same row 2 double crochet until your strap reaches as long as you want it, or 40 inches, like what's called for in the pattern. And I'll show you what that looks like. So once your piece is done, it'll look something like this. And you want to make sure that if you are sewing it, if you are choosing to sew it at the end, you leave a long tail to do so, to allow yourself to do so. And what I mean by sewing it is with your yarn needle, you would just simply take it and sew it to the top inside of the water bottle holder. But if you would rather single crochet, certainly that is a great way to go as well. But once you're done, you'll have this piece completed. You'll have your strap. And then if you want to add tassels, that's the last piece, and your drawstring. So there's technically 4 pieces that are together, but this is how you construct all of them. Just by working in a tube for the water bottle like we did, working flat for this strap, just simple double crochet, and then just a double stranded chain for the drawstring. And then I'll show you really quick how what I mean by you can create this bag now by knowing how to create this bag or how to stitch this bag. So for the yoga bag, begin the same way: magic ring, single crochet, half double crochet, 7 double crochet. There's just additional rounds. Whereas we ended at 27 with the first bag, you're going to end with 54 with this one. So you're just going to repeat that same, building the bottom until it's wider and wider. And this is customizable as well. So once you build that spiral, like we did until 6 inches for the water bottle bag, for the yoga bag, you'll want to make it the spiral until, about 3 inches before the top of your yoga mat. So that's customizable as well. It's just working that spiral to the length that you want. Same thing with the straps. The strap is worked the same way with the big bag. It's just a little longer, and the drawstring. So everything's constructed in the same manner. They're just 2 different size bags. But they're a great way as well to get some practice in working in the round, as well as having a practical and really cute project at the end of it. So are there any questions remaining? Raina?
Nope, I don't think so. Katie wants to know, do you have any tips for modifying for a wider or thicker bottle or mat?
Yes. So what I would say is if you want to make it wider or thicker, where you're going to want to increase is that these bottom rounds we did. So remember how I said you're going to want to make sure that that bottom fits the width of the bottom of your water bottle. The way you can do that is, as you can see, like with the yoga mat bag, to increase, we did 2 double crochets in that first round in each stitch around. With each round as you grow, you're going to want to do 2 and then 1, and then the next round 2 and then 1 in the next 2. And then if you want, the bigger you want it to be, each round you'll do 2 double crochets in your first stitch and then separate it by 1, 2, 3 as you go, if that makes sense. So like at the end of round 6 on the yoga bag, you do 2 double crochets in the first stitch and then just 1 in the next 4. So if you wanted to make it even bigger, you would do an additional round, but within the next 5. So that'll continue to grow that circle evenly until you're ready to build up the sides. So I hope that made sense.
Yes, thank you. And just wanted to ask, can you add tassels to your water bottle case? They were already on there though, right?
Do you mean like, can you add them directly to your water bottle or?
Don't know.
So for the tassels, I will say, if you buy a tassel maker, it has instructions included, and you'll make a cord at the top, so a little loop, and it's simple just to, and you can even search on YouTube how to attach tassels to a yarn project. But with this being a chain, just a chain with a tail, you just attach it by tying that loop to the end of the tail. So you'll make the tassel separately and then just tie it on if you want to add them. So I think that's what you mean by your question. I hope that answered it.
I think so. I think we're all good.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed teaching this class with you guys today. And I would love to see both Premier and I, and as well as Michael's, would love to see what you're working on. So if you share it with us, we're Premier Yarns on Instagram, and you can share your projects with the hashtag Make It Premier. And we'd love to see your water bottle holder bags as well. So thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks.
Or Kimberlyn, my
Yes.
bad. Oh, I almost had it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.